Hello, my name is Derek Temple, and this is the first in a series of videos about databases. Now, there are two major types of databases, and this first video is just going to cover the differences between them, mainly leaning towards the relational databases. We're going to cover some basics on them, and then we will continue with relational databases for a while, and then we'll go back and cover some more on the non-relational databases. Now, relational databases are very well known, very used, and a few of them are very popular, such as MySQL and SQLite and PostgreSQL. And of course there's Microsoft SQL Server and Oracle, who now owns MySQL. Now, relational databases are set up like tables. In fact, they are set up in tables. You have a table that has rows and columns, kind of like a spreadsheet, and you set values to those columns, and then you put data into the database, and each piece of data will relate to the column that it's in. Now, if you need to store data on your website, such as user information or blog posts or anything really, you want to store that data in a database. So if you store it in a database using SQL, then you'll have multiple rows of data. Now, as you can see here, there are multiple tables, and each of these tables has its own data. So if we go to users, we can actually look at the structure, and it shows all of the columns and what their name is and what their data type is. So you can see the first column is user ID, which is an int, and then you have a first name, last name, and username, which are all varchar, and then you have password, and you can also have other stuff like a user type ID, user status ID, date of birth, age, created date. And if you notice, date of birth is of data type date, and a created date is date time. So you can declare any column name you want, and you can create as many columns as you need for your application. And you can also set what kind of data can be stored in this table. So let's look at the content of the table. As you can see, these fields across the top here are the columns that we were just looking at. You have a user ID, you have a first name, you have a last name, you have a username, password, user type ID, user status ID, date of birth, age, and created date. And using this tool, which is SQL Pro, I can actually look at the data in my database, and I can sort by whichever column I want. Now the data in here, as you can see, is in a numbered order right now. I've selected user ID, and a user ID, we have it set up to be auto-incremented, meaning that every time you add a new piece of data to the database, it's going to create a new row, and it's going to give the user ID of the next number available, and you'll never have more than one of the same number. As you can see, the numbers just keep going as you go down. And if we flip this way, you can see that there are 250,002 entries in the database. Now, the data in the database is all connected by the row. So if I were to pull data from the first row, which is for user ID number 1, I would end up getting the information for a user named John Doe, username JDoe, with a password of password. Now, this information can be used to connect to other things in your website. And we'll be getting into more of that in future videos, and how to link up between multiple tables in a database. And that is all for today.